welcome everybody to our first ever JSS podcast. So a little bit outside my comfort zone, doing a little something new here in the office, and trying to take an opportunity to share a little bit about everything that we do and all the intricacies to this business. And I know constantly being asked, what's my opinion about the real estate market, what's happening with the economy, what's happening with tariffs, what's happening with all the stuff that's kind of out there. And as much as I think, this topics can be a little bit dry, I just figured, let's take an opportunity to share a little bit, and see if we can have a little bit of fun. We're going to try to talk real estate. We're going to try to talk economy. We're going to try to talk finance. We're going to try to talk maybe even a little bit of Dodger baseball in here every once in a while, because as you can see, I'm a fan. But other than that, we're just going to share some of my experiences, maybe tell some funny stories of things that have happened. Try to bring some cool guests on, so we can ask. So, this is a podcast that I think I want to do for everybody. So if you are interested in joining, interested in listening, sharing, feel free. So that's basically it. That's basically our intro. And from there till today, I figured I'd wanted to just talk a little bit about private money lending, a little bit about hard money lending, differences, what people think, how you can use it and what it really means. And I know a lot of people don't understand exactly what it is we do. And I know it's one of those things that if you've been in real estate for some time and you've heard these terms, but even then you may not understand or know really what it is. So just want to give a kind of a overview of the market, right? Overview of finance and options when it comes to real estate. So in a typical real estate transaction, you're going to either buy a house cash or you're going to get a loan, right? And the loan is called a mortgage. There's a deed or a lien that gets recorded against your property, right? So that's the basics. There's your standard mortgage options that people always go through, banking. Everybody hears the terms Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, first-time home buyer stuff. So that's all the big traditional lending sources that are available. What we operate under, private lending, hard money, is pretty much everything outside of that space, right? And when I say that, there's loans that are geared for I want to say professional investors or people who are investing in real estate, and don't want to deal with what the banks make you go through, right? If anybody's gotten a loan in the last couple of years, they know that it's just a pain in the butt, right? It really is hard to get approved and do all that stuff. So with hard money and private lending, we use, sometimes our own funds, or we use funds from investors that we have that have invested with us. And then we can use that so we can move a lot quicker. We can, cut through a lot of the red tape. We don't have to jump through the same hoops that a bank would make you go through. So we have the opportunity to be able to navigate and do some fun stuff with it. A lot of times we get to create pretty much a program that makes sense. It doesn't mean that it doesn't come with its, pitfalls or risks, right? Because with anything, it's risky. So first and foremost, the big thing that everybody always talks about is like, oh my God, you guys are expensive. Yeah. And my answer always is yes, we are. Our loans are expensive. But it solves for a need. It solves for something where when you need to mobilize quick, right? A lot of people who use our services are, like I said, private investors that don't want to deal with banks. We have a program where it's what we call a bridge program, where somebody who's selling a house, but they haven't sold it yet, but they need to buy another house, and they don't want to make a contingent offer, right? Contingent means that they're looking at your offer, but you're contingent on you selling your place before you can buy their house, right? So as a seller, and when it's a seller's market and they have a lot of offers available, that's not necessarily something that gives you a competitive advantage. So people come in with us where we can bridge that gap before you sell your house. We can fund that new purchase. And then once you sell your house, you pay us back, right? So sometimes we have a loan out for a month or two before we get paid back. but it's something that people can do. Another thing too is, like I said, investors, right? That's big in our world, where we've created programs to facilitate investors being able to flip properties, being able to buy a property and fix it up to rent it and hold long term. Right? It's cool because we can finance the purchase of a house, we can finance your rehab, we can finance all the stuff that goes in, carrying costs sometimes too. So it's expensive, but it alleviates some of the risk of money coming out of your pocket, right? And we take the bigger risks, and we partner with you on that transaction. So yeah, it lets you get to that place where you can make money on this transaction without having to jump through all those hoops. We don't ask for tax returns. We don't, we do pull credit, but we're not super strict on credit. We're asset based, and our loans are determined by the asset. The asset meaning the real estate, right? What is it worth? What can it be worth? What is the potential? Are you adding value to it? So that's in a nutshell. That's what we can offer. I'll give a little just kind of rundown of how it works. And in this world, it's very different. We move fast. I'll say that right off the bat, right? We don't always do appraisals on properties. We sometimes we can close on on properties without stuff. I'll give you an interesting story. We did a transaction a couple months back where it was a $7-8 million purchase in a very affluent neighborhood. The house was torn apart. Right, the house was the seller of the house was in the middle of a remodel, ran out of money. They needed to get rid of it. So our client, saw the opportunity. Traditional bank won't touch that, right? It's like there's no kitchen, there's no bathrooms, there's not a livable home. So, we were able to come in with I forgot what it was, $5.5-6 million loan, and close it in 3 or 4 days. Never appraised it. We just walked the property, saw that it's there, saw that there could be some tremendous value when they were finished. So we took the risk, right? We took the risk along with the client, got the deal done. They were able to fix it up, and I think they're still in the process of doing so. But yeah, that's a cool thing, right? The process is similar in the aspect of a traditional loan where, we're still gonna have a consultation. We'll talk. You usually be talking to me. I'll walk you through the process. I'll ask you kind of what you're trying to get accomplished. That's the big thing. When I structure a loan for someone, it's always like, what's your end game, right? What are you trying to get done with this? So I can put together a deal that makes the most sense, right? And we'll collect some documentation, not a big thing. It's usually applications, some identification stuff. We'll run credit. Then other than that, it's really on the property, looking at your experience. If you've done this before, what is happening with the property? Are you spending money? Is there budgets? Things like that, and we'll structure a loan that makes sense for you. I will say, it's not for everybody. These loans are tough, right? And it's helpful if you have experience and what you're getting into. Because, if you're, I've seen so many horror stories where somebody's first time flipping and they want to flip a property and they go in and, they're like, oh yeah, my cousin's an electrician and he's going to help me out, and my neighbor's a plumber and he's going to do this and that. So I'm sure I'm going to get everything on the cheap, right? And that's what everybody thinks. And then they go into the transaction, and next thing you know, that neighbor decided to charge them more or didn't finish the job. Or the cousin is not licensed and then couldn't get a permit, and it can end up throwing your project sideways, and then you're not going to finish, or you're not going to close, or you're not going to finish on budget and on time, and a lot of that factors in. I was talking to somebody yesterday about that. I said my pet peeve that I have with all these real estate shows, right? And the term that I use is all these real estate experts, right? They paid for a course, they paid for a webinar. And now they're a pro and they know how to flip properties. But one of the things they don't talk to you about, they don't talk to you about your carrying costs. They don't talk about utilities. They don't talk to you about fees and commissions. And they don't talk to you about waiting on the city to approve permits. And, and then if you don't factor all that stuff in, next thing you know, you're 6 months, 9 months, 12 months past. And again, like I said, if our loans are more expensive, you don't want to have to keep that loan for such a long time. And then if you are, then you're definitely cutting into your potential profits, right? So I mean, those are pros and cons, right? It's not for everybody. It's not, but it does give you the opportunity to do some stuff that otherwise you wouldn't be able to get, right? We would finance, $1 million property with very minimal exposure for yourself, less risk. We can work with your contractors. We can, help structure, payments to them where you're not taking the money up front and we're paying them in chunks, and you're only paying interest on the amounts that you've borrowed. So, that is a great opportunity where you're not taking out this money, or you're not cashing out your 401k, or you're not wherever it is, other people get money. It does lend for some, it does, open up some doors for some opportunities like that. A hard money loan, private money, kind of the same. For a long time, I've had bad connotation, right? It's always in this industry, oh my God, if I don't pay, somebody's gonna come break my kneecaps, right? It's not how it is, right? It's not what we've designed here at JSS. We've built a program where, honestly, it's almost like if you're working with a bigger bank. You get mortgage statements. You have all our stuff is drawn up by our attorneys. We have a servicing company that will collect payments. You go online and make payments online. You download your statements. You can do this, and you can, it's everything is brought up to a different level than just hey, I'm going to borrow money from these guys and these guys, and they're gonna, you're never gonna know. You never know, they're gonna show up at your door. That's not the kind of lending we do. We operate as a bigger institution. We operate like a world-class resources. We try to bring concierge service to everybody. To be able to create something and help you build wealth, right? And on the wealth building side of it, we also, part of us being able to lend these funds out is us also being able to have opportunities for investors, people who have wanted to invest in real estate, but maybe say, look, I don't want to go buy a house. I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. I don't have the know-how. I don't have the vision. I don't have the ability to go out and look for a house, and I don't want to, right? With us, at JSS, we also operate a debt fund where it's fully licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission, a fully licensed investment vehicle where you can invest minimum of $50,000, comes in with us. And then what we do is we pool all the monies that we have in our fund, and then we create these loans where we lend out money to investors and all these people who like I said, that we tailor to, right? So we have both sides of it where you can invest with us, we lend out that money, generate handsome returns for everybody, but then your risk is diversified, right? Your risk is spread out over not one house that you're trying to flip, but it's over a portfolio of all our loans, our performing loans, right? How we're doing as a whole, as a company. Gives you the ability to generate some very, very handsome returns based off of that. Being able to share in the wealth and in the revenue that we bring in every year as an organization. So we do some fun stuff, and it gets the ability to be able to be a part of something a little bit bigger, where instead of having to try to go find a house, right? And we can operate nationwide, where we can lend, and we can open up the doors for people and really spread this opportunities where a lot of people don't see it, right? And real estate's a tough market. Real estate's a tough business to get into, and sometimes it's hard because, the guys they're doing really well are coming in and they're very well backed and they have millions, and sometimes it's hard to compete, right? But when we pool ourselves together and we can join forces and we can execute on different things, it gives us the ability to be able to help everybody out, and operate as a much larger unit than one individual trying to get one home, right? So with JSS, we've created kind of a platform where we can do lending, we can do real estate, you can invest with us, all within the sphere of real estate, right? We can, finance your deals. We can, if you want to invest, we can take in money, generate a return for you. Even if you need to find the property or sell the property, with JSS, we're kind of a full stop shop, or lets you be able to do that. But I think the best thing about that is what it does is there's a cross pollination where we're kind of overlapping and let the experience. I've been doing this. Wow, age myself, but I've been doing this for like 25 years, right? I have about 25 years of experience where we've accumulated relationships and we've accumulated know-how. I usually make the joke with people and I say, if there's a transaction out there, that some weird situation that people have been through, I've probably been through it. I've done thousands upon thousands of transactions, kind of been around the block, done, we have financed dirt, we have financed apartment buildings, we've financed churches, we've financed rehab facilities, we've also financed condos, we've financed mobile homes. I mean, we've done a little bit of everything, and we have touched on all aspects of real estate. And my thing usually is, when somebody asks, what can you lend on? And I say, well, if it's attached to real estate, we can probably do a loan, right? And we can structure these opportunities for people, and it lets kind of my experience, my know-how, being able to talk these deals through. We've financed 100 acres out in Texas. We've done just a lot of cool things for people, where and we can share that, and we can say, look, this is how I've done something before. Here's where all my other investors are doing. And that's part of what we want to do with this podcast a little bit, is be able to share some stories, just kind of some things. Today's, I know, maybe it's a little bit more data heavy about what it is we do, just so I want to just set a good platform. But I want to give we're going to tackle some specific scenarios and things that people have gone through in real life situations where our clients have gone through, and how we fixed it, or how to prep for this. Or hopefully, if you're listening and you're watching, and you've always thought, it's something I would want to do, maybe, lights a fire under you, or maybe it shows you some opportunities where you can say, okay, this is something I can do. This is something that makes sense for me and my family, and maybe want to talk to somebody. So we're available. We're all the social media platforms. We're our office here in Southern California. We're local. But we have presence nationwide. We can, talk about all the markets. If you want to talk to somebody and have a consultation, we're here, we're available. I love talking, clearly. And this is kind of my passion. This is really what I like to do. I like to educate people. I like to show them, if somebody says, hey, I want to know how to invest, or I want to know how to flip a property, or I want to just park some money somewhere, I got this and I just don't know what to do with it, and I don't know what kind of returns to get from it, give us a call. We can talk to somebody, we can talk to you, we can show you around. And that's really it. That's really who we are, what we do. That's kind of it's my background. I have a passion for helping people. I have a passion for teaching. I have a passion for helping communities that are underserved, and who haven't been given the same opportunities to sometimes invest, and don't know about these options, and don't know how to build this wealth, or don't know how to expand, build a portfolio, and don't know how to build some rental properties, don't know how to, whatever it is. I love to guide people in that, right? Corporate structure, what's needed with that, LLCs, differences. I have experience in all that, and we can walk you through it and show you, and show you what's there. So anyway, we're gonna keep it at that today. I think I've taken it way too long already. Just want to thank you guys for listening. Hopefully brought some value. Put some questions in our comments, or I'm not even sure how we're gonna disperse this, but ask some questions. I'd love to talk to people about what you have out there, what opportunities are coming up, scenarios, and things topics that you'd like to cover. And I'll be there for you guys. So listen, subscribe, follow us, share, and let us know. Thanks. Appreciate you guys.